All right, everybody, joining me on the podcast today, we are previewing the South Carolina Gamecocks, continuing our countdown to college football season, to hopefully college football season. Joining me to preview South Carolina is David Knight from Last Word on College Football. And David, I do appreciate you taking the time to come on the show.
Hey, not a problem, man. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, it's fun doing this. I've said this. I think to anybody that from Last Word doing this, we always exchange messages, but actually seeing fellow colleague over at Last Word is always cool. So yeah, glad to have you on here, man. It's kind of like I told you before I hit the record button. It's like when I do these things, I have to kind of open up with the topic. I mean, is if we're gonna have a college football season, or where are you at on that?
I honestly lean towards it being less likely. I think pro sports is going to be fine. I think NFL will come back. MLB started up there good. Yeah, the MLS has their tournament. It starts this week. But college is just a different dynamic with so many different bodies having to make the decisions, including state governments and stuff like that. That's going to be tough to pull off, but I hope it happens, obviously.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I was Mr. Optimism for most of the time this going on, but I think what really dropped me down a little bit, I still think they're going to try to start it. But what really hit me where I was like, okay, I'm down a level now, is when they had the Big Ten came out and said we're going to go conference only. And then the Pac 12 did it. And then you see some of the FCS conferences are now saying we're not going to play this fall. So I think when that happened, it kind of started triggering me. Okay, this is different. We may not have a season or a delayed season or a shorter season. Just it's not going to be the season that we thought we were going to have.
Yeah, it'll definitely be different. I think the differences will be drastic. And like I said, with the different governing bodies, just not only the conferences and then the governments and the schools themselves, there's so many different people that are going to be trying to make decisions. It'll be hard to get enough people on track for, on the same page to pull it off, because college sports is just such a wide, there's so many teams, so many programs, so many players, so many people involved in it. And with no unions or contracts like pro sports, it's harder to get everyone on the same page as opposed to, like I was saying, the MLB or the NBA kind of getting their stuff together.
Yeah, they can't agree on anything. The conferences, and they can't agree on anything on a normal situation, much less a difficult one like this one. Now, if we do have a season, for someone, of course, covers South Carolina, grew up with them. Oh, the Clemson game. How important do you think that is to keep that, or do you think most people in South Carolina would be okay if maybe for 1 year you didn't have it?
I mean, I know there's considering they've put a whooping on us the last couple of years, obviously I could do without that in my life. But I mean, it's also the, I think, third longest uninterrupted series in college football right now. I know one of them's a Big Ten. I believe it's Minnesota and Iowa, maybe. I know there's a Big Ten one in there, and there's one more. And then there's South Carolina Clemson, which I'm pretty sure is at 107 consecutive seasons now that they've played. So, and I think it's one of the most played overall. But I know it's like third longest consecutive streak, so that would be rough to end that streak over something like this. But there's no telling what's going to happen at this point.
Yeah, it's kind of like you just kind of each day you got to wait and see. Also not just sports related stuff, just whatever thing that's going on right now. But with South Carolina with the upcoming season, okay, I guess I'm going to start it with this, and we're going to jump to talking about Will Muschamp. If this was going to be a normal season where we weren't in a pandemic and everything, and I feel like it's hot seat talk is kind of different right now because of everything going on. How much of one would he be on going into this season?
Yeah. I believe, I don't know, I think it's a little bit layered. I know the administration with Ray Tanner at AD has shown, complete support for him and continues to do that. But the fan base is at a different point in their, love affair with Will Muschamp at this point. I mean, I think if it was to be a regular season, he would have at least had to have had back to a winning record and get to a bowl game for him to keep his job. I don't think he could have gone 4-8 again. I don't believe that would be acceptable at all. I think that would have probably seen him shown the door.
Yeah, because what 2 years ago they won the 9 games, but then it just seems like early on when his reign there or his tenure at South Carolina, everybody was praising him because he showed he changed after Florida with the offense. But the offense now seems like it kind of it's not been as good when you've had some good players there as well. I know they're bringing in Mike Bobo as offensive coordinator now, and Ryan Helinski as the quarterback. But overall, offensively, is that where this team has really kind of had some issues these last 2 years?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I will. This past season, the 4-8 season, it was offense pretty much completely fell on the offense. I mean, you lose Billy in the first game of the season, so you go from a senior 4-year starter at quarterback to a true freshman at quarterback. He gets banged up against Alabama and really wasn't the same player for the rest of the year. He showed a lot that, I mean, obviously the Charleston Southern game was Charleston Southern, but he showed he could be out there and he could make plays. In the Alabama game, he played really well against Alabama, and obviously your hype comes with playing well against Alabama because they're Alabama. And but then Missouri, he got banged up at the end of the Bama game, and then Missouri game, I think he hurt wasn't very good. Then the Georgia game, he hurt his knee, and he just didn't seem to be healthy the rest of the year. And you could tell he just didn't have the zip on his passes. We attempted to throw the ball more than 15 yards downfield the last 4 or 5 games of the season. And if it wasn't Brian Edwards, we weren't moving the ball at all near the end of the year. And I mean, I'm looking at it now. I believe they were 104th in the country, 22 points a game last year. That's not going to cut it. You got to be able to score more than 3 touchdowns in a game.
Yeah, and then I think the last 3 games they scored only like 1 touchdown. Like I said, with Ryan Helinski, I remember watching that Alabama game. He made some throws in that game against Alabama, but then you look at he was hurt. I mean, and then still the numbers he put up, despite that 58% passing, 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, almost 2,400 yards. But when you look at the team, what he has coming back around him, running back, they are very inexperienced there. 78% of their rushing is gone. Their top 3 leading rushers. I know they have the freshman Marshawn Lloyd coming in, and I was reading in the preseason magazines. They seem to think he's going to be a big part of the offense going this year. Is that kind of how you're seeing it with him?
Yeah, I believe Lloyd's going to have to step in right away and be real good. He showed a lot. I think we got 2 weeks of spring practice in before the coronavirus shut everything down. And he looked good in those 2 weeks, and his workout stuff, his stuff during the All-Star games from high school, like he really showed he's got a lot of potential and a lot of ability. But a true freshman running back in the SEC, sometimes they come in and they're great. Sometimes they realize, wait, this is the SEC. This is a little different than what I'm used to. So
yeah,
you don't want to have to rely on that.
Yeah,
but I think Kevin Harris is another running back. A freshman last year. I think he has a chance to be a solid player. He's more of a bowling ball type, just bouncing off people. He's tough to bring down. Lloyd's more the explosive, big play guy. So, I mean, they're both really young, but hopefully the offensive line should be better, and so hopefully the talent will outweigh the lack of experience.
Yeah, running back. I mean, I saw a couple of the magazines. They tried to compare him to Lattimore. I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that. I mean, that's a lot of pressure too as well. Back on Bentley, you talking about he left. How would you grade his time at South Carolina? I know he came in with a lot of a little bit, not as much as Helinski, but still a lot of promise coming in. He played well early as a freshman, but how do South Carolina fans feel about him after he is gone and now he's going on to Utah?
Well, I mean, I like Bentley. I thought he was a good player. He obviously had his issues. It seemed like I described it before where I don't think I'd ever seen a player, especially at quarterback, that they're good and they're bad were so drastically different. Like, if you got good Bentley, you got, the guy that threw for 3,300 yards his junior year and, threw for 500 yards against Clemson and, could dart the ball around the field, was finding Deebo Samuel and finding Brian Edwards or finding Hayden Hurst a couple years earlier. But then when you got the bad Bentley, you got the guy that showed up at Kentucky 2 years ago and couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And you're just like, who is this guy? Like, it was his the gap between his good play and his bad play was large and noticeable when you knew pretty early on, man, we got a bad Bentley today. This isn't going to be good. But then when you got the good Bentley, you're like, man, he's hitting everything. It was crazy that there was such a swing between his abilities depending on the Saturday.
Yeah, I still remember. Was it Tennessee where he made his debut start against his freshman year?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one I said, wow, this kid.
That
I
was
mean, there's no fear. He had no fear. I mean, to go into that kind of situation and come out with a big victory for South Carolina. I mean, that was that was Muschamp's first year or so, no, that was his first, no, that was his first year, because I think I remember
that was the first
where he
year.
came out that he
Yeah.
did not want to make the same mistake he made with Will Greer, where he redshirted him and didn't play him, and then we saw what happened. He went with McElwain. So then he goes with Bentley. So that was one of the deals, like I kind of guess going back on something you remember seeing about Muschamp when he first got to South Carolina, said he has changed. He has evolved as a head coach versus what he was at Florida.
Yeah, that was, I think, after the bye week we played UMass, and that was Bentley's first start, and then Tennessee was the next week, was his first SEC start, and our offense was really bad those first 6 weeks of Muschamp's first season, and Bentley was a early graduate or early enrollee, and so they were just going to let him redshirt the first year because they had McElwain as a freshman at quarterback, and then Perry Orth was also there, but then they made the change during the bye week, and I think we won 4 out of 6 to end the season. And Bentley played pretty good. And then, the sophomore year, he was a 9-win. We were a 9-win team. And then his junior year, our offense was probably the best it was while he was there. But the defense by the end of the year had like 15 players on injured reserve. And we were playing, backups and walk-ons, and we were Swiss cheese by the end of the year. So, like, we were scoring 40 points a game into that season, but we were losing half our games because we couldn't stop it.
Yeah, I remember that, man. That depth, you start getting injuries, it'll hit you. I remember that with South Carolina, because offensively, yeah, you're right. They were really doing some things with them that year. Now, when you look at the quarterback, Ryan Holinsky, who is he going to be throwing to? Because, of course, Brian Edwards is gone, one of the best receivers, if not the best, that you've seen at South Carolina, especially when you look at just the stats. I know Shi Smith is still there, but outside of that, you don't see a lot of experience there. What are you seeing, and what are you thinking about this wide receiving group at South Carolina?
Yeah, for the receiver group, it'll be headed by Shi Smith, who I think has the ability to be a really good player. I'm not sure if he's a really good number 1 wide receiver or a really good number 2 wide receiver and needs someone to be that one guy, and then Shi Smith will be the complement. I think he could definitely be that role. We'll see if he can be the number 1 this year. Nick Muse at tight end, who hurt himself in the Vandy game last year, and he'll be back hopefully early in the season. He'll be able to come back and contribute. He's a solid player, good playmaker with the ball after he catches it. At receiver, you got, I'm trying to think now. You got Josh Vann, who'll be a junior, who's a 4-star, highly praised coming in, but he really hadn't done a whole lot since he's been here. You got Xavier Leggett, who was a quarterback in high school and kind of started to play a bit at the end of last year, and he's got some talent, but he's still learning to play receiver, so he's got to take another step. And I'm hopeful that Kerryon Joyner, full-time receiver now, and not being in the quarterback room, maybe he'll have a chance to become a playmaker, because when he's got the ball in his hands, that kid can make some stuff happen. But he was just going back and forth between receiver and then having to be backup quarterback once we were down to just true freshmen. Sorry. Slight interruption. But yeah, it'll be tough. They need people to step up for sure. At receiver, like who's going to make plays on that offense is definitely going to be quite a good season for Carolina.
Oh, with Bobo, overall, what are you looking for him to do with this offense? Because you remember him from Georgia. It was a running game. And yeah, they threw the ball. Had some good quarterbacks at Georgia, but with him being there as offensive coordinator, or what kind of offense are you thinking or hoping to see him run?
I think more than anything for South Carolina, for our offense, it's the consistency is what we need. Consistency in the plan, and then consistency in the performance. Like, if you look at the number, top 0.8 yards a carry, but third one, we could get 4th and 1. We had some decent numbers in areas, but we couldn't punch it in for touchdowns inside the 20. Like, they need to play more consistent level, not just, have some good plays and shoot themselves in the foot like they tend to do too often. Bobo will be better with creating a plan for what his players can do and, putting them in the best situation and keeping it more consistent with how they perform and with the plan they, go. Are we going to be a running team? Are we going to be a spread team? We kind of flip-flop back and forth the last 2 years over what we were going to do, and it led to inconsistency, basically.
Yeah, and then you look at the defense side of the ball. Of course, last year, I mean, you could look at numbers. I got it right here on my notes. I mean, they gave it 26 games, but 10th in scoring, 11th in the SEC overall. But you got to think that's a lot of that's got to do with the fact that, like we've been saying earlier, the offense struggled, and that usually is a big impact on the defense side of the ball.
Yeah, put them in some bad situations. I actually think the defense has a chance to be very, very good this year. The defensive backfield has gotten a lot better and a lot deeper, and you got Mukwamu and Horn at corner, which I think is as good a tandem as there is. They could match up with any tandem of corners in the SEC. Roderick and Jamie Robinson will be the two safety, and I like Roderick. He's pretty well. Robinson, as a freshman last year, showed things. Along the defensive line, though, this team is as deep as we've been since we had Clowney, Ingram, Robertson, Devin Taylor. Like, our defensive line should be very good. Even losing Kinlaw, our defensive line should probably get a little better this year, just because the young talent's going to have a little bit more under their belt as far as knowing what to do stronger, being able to punish me in the trenches in the SEC. And I think guys like, Aaron Sterling, Rick Sandage, Zach Pickens, who was solid last year, could all end up having really big years this year.
Yeah, you mentioned the defensive backs, and I know you got a J.C. Horn there, and a guy that you're not going to see a lot of stats, but he didn't get the ball thrown in his direction a lot last year with South Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definite cover guy. They don't challenge him as much if they don't have to, and that's why. I mean, he has the one they showed this on ESPN. Decided to put the highlight out again like two weeks ago or a week ago on Instagram and Twitter, and it had Carolina fans going crazy. But the kid from North Carolina made a pass on their long drive to win that game, the first game of the year last year, and the ball goes like dead through Horn's hands and hits the North Carolina receiver almost unexpected. It like 4 yards downfield because it went right through Horn's hands. So he needs to start making plays in that regard, catching the ball, taking it away. But coverage wise, and he's great, and he's a solid tackler as well. But the big plays is the next step he needs to take.
Yeah, because I was looking at, I mean, like you said, all the guys you named, and in the middle you got Ernest Jones at linebacker, who led the team with 97 tackles last year. I mean, defense, like you said, should be good to Paris Robinson, of course, defense coordinator there. And with the offense, if you are trying to, get a season, you're trying to figure out some things. That's a big thing. If you can have that defense you can rely on that can kind of keep these games close as you kind of get the new offense, legs under them, because like we've talked about here, inexperienced at receiver and running back, and you got a sophomore quarterback. So there's going to be some things, I guess, to work out with this team, and so that's a big thing if this defense can, live up to that talent that they have.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the defense obviously be key as the offense kind of finds their way to start the year with question marks at all the skill positions. But I think just like you mentioned, Curtis Jones, I think he's going to be an all SEC performer this year. He developed a really good linebacker last year when he took over at Mike linebacker. And then Sherrod Green, who struggled the previous season, was not very good at all, ended up being pretty darn good last year. And at the end of it, he's one of our better players. He was having a pretty good season as well. So I think at all three levels, we've got talent on defense that can make an impact. And like you said, they'll have to, because we don't know who that talent is on the offense right now to make the impact. So definitely going to need the defense to play at a Will Muschamp defense level.
I know, you kind of think this goes for anybody in college football that's trying to learn about their team, because a lot of teams, we've known this college football, they've always done this. I mean, yeah, you get the big non-conference early season games, but a lot of teams do play. Let's face it, teams they're pretty sure they know they're going to beat, where you can work some stuff out. You go conference only, you don't have that. So that's going. I mean, just say for instance, the SEC goes conference only, and South Carolina keeps to just the schedule they have. You're opening with Missouri. Yeah, Missouri wasn't good last year, but still, that's different than going against, no disrespect, against Coastal Carolina. That's different.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Can we start with Vandy? Don't tell Kate I said that.
Well, I guess a lot of people probably think they want to start with Vandy this year. If you could pick an SEC team, I don't know. Arkansas in the West,
Yeah.
maybe another one, but it's tough. It's tough if you're going conference only because it's. I
The,
mean,
the
especially
West will be interesting,
I agree.
especially with Arkansas, but Mississippi and Mississippi State all have no new coaches, and none of them getting spring practice. It could be wild with the coaching changes and not having time to implement. So not having spring practice with new coaches is going to be interesting in that Western Division.
Yeah, it will be. I mean, I put Alabama at the top. I mean, they're obviously, but what Auburn, who knows offensive line though? That's the question for me with them. LSU just they're talented but inexperienced. They got to replace a whole bunch of guys. And Texas A&M they're talented again, but can they take the next step with Jimbo? And like I said, the other three, the two Mississippi schools in Arkansas. It's kind of you kind of feel like Alabama should finish number one, but 2 through 7 is kind of you don't really know the order they're going to finish in without after Alabama. That's the interesting thing I think.
Yeah, I agree. Well, other than probably Arkansas down the line with that, but yeah, the rest of the ones in the middle, it'll be the matchups between each other that'll determine whether A&M finishes above Auburn or Auburn finishes above LSU, or what the Mississippi schools do with the new coaches. Like it'll basically be all battle, even whether it's just conference games or not. It'll be those matchups that determine who finishes above, because y'all are all about in that same boat with question marks and talent. Kind of feel your way, see what's.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like I said, I hope we get it. But see, this is the part of the podcast, these previews, where I would talk about the schedule full length, and I would ask the guest.
Yeah.
Can't do that because let's face it, we don't know if there's going to be what kind they play this season. Are they going? What's the schedule like? We don't know. Conference only. Will they do a +1? Who knows? But when you look at South Carolina and you measure them up against the rest of the SEC East, of course, everybody's got Florida and Georgia at 1 and 2. Honestly, personally, I would put Kentucky over Tennessee. I am not buying the Tennessee hype, and I know we got some Tennessee riders at Last Word of College Football. So if you're listening to this, I apologize. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but I'm not buying the Tennessee hype. But anyways, for you, where does South Carolina fit in with the SEC East?
Yeah, I refuse to ever buy into the Tennessee hype because I just can't stand them. But I do think it'll be pretty good this year. I don't know. They got Terry Wilson back, right? We're back. I
Yeah.
think so. Losing Bowden will hurt them, but getting Wilson back as their quarterback will be good. Stoops is, they stuck with him when they didn't, when some other schools might not have, and they're getting the benefits now. They've been to bowl games multiple times in a row in a 10-win season a couple years ago. Like they stuck with him, and he got it on the right track. It took him a couple years, but he's got it going where they want it now, and they become a pretty solid. You can expect them in the top half of the East at least the last couple years. Florida's in to me. They had a weird offseason, with people leaving and different random stuff going on, and then but Trask is back. They got a bunch of talent on that team. Mullen is at least good for 8-9 wins every year. Whether he's that next step or not, who knows? I'd still have Georgia at the top, I would have to say.
It's going to be interesting.
Missouri's got the new coach, so they'll be dealing.
Yeah, it's. I feel like the SEC is in a better spot, like overall with teams. Yeah, I think Alabama's going to win the conference, but I could see somebody else beating them. Like I could see Florida, Georgia doing it because they're both talented enough. who knows what Auburn and LSU. So I think there are like a few teams that can win this conference.
Yeah, I don't stand Bama having to I don't know that they're head and shoulders above everybody like they've been, or like LSU was last year, or like they've been most of the last handful of years. I think they can get beat. They're not one of. They're not. Oh, they should go undefeated, be in the playoff again. Like it'll be. This might be one of those years where the SEC would have been sweating out on a playoff berth because the top, like you said, are all around this. They can past couple of years, one or two, just still has to be a big moment. They're iffy on under Smart so far for all the good stuff he's done.
Yeah, just don't too many fake punts against Alabama in the SEC championship game in a weird way, like he did 2 years ago.
That's still the most ridiculous thing. I can't believe he did that.
I can't either.
They had him 2 years in a row. They had him dead to rights, just dominate them for a half, and it just fell apart 2 years in a row. One for a national title and one for an SEC title in a year where, I don't know, I mean, Clemson obviously won the title that year, so that would have been interesting, but that Georgia team was pretty darn good. Just tried to outsmart themselves, and it didn't work out.
Yeah, they just can't get it together second half against Alabama. They can just pull out any backup quarterback they got and get it done. Oh, anyways, David, it's been fun. I'm glad you come on here to talk South Carolina. I'm having fun doing these every week, anyways, previewing these SEC teams. But anyways, like I said, I appreciate you coming on the show just today. And if the listeners want to follow you online, where can they find you?
And I know some Carolina football. I hope Unism pays off and we get a college football season. I'd love to watch it. Obviously, hopefully see some progress from Carolina. If any of the listeners like the mess that I spoke today, it's at DK3000SC on Twitter. And then, like Phillip said, I write for Last Word on College Football with him and a bunch of other great writers. So check us out. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it, man.
All right. Thanks, David, once again, and I appreciate the time, and I look forward to talking to you again sometime down the road.
Yes, sir. Have a good one. Go Gamecocks.